We continue now at the top of Daf Samech Aleph and Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 69a. The Gemara continues there the following question: Nafal lego cholamai, if the mouse falls into vinegar, what is the halacha? And Rashi explains the question: Nafal lego cholamai, if it falls into vinegar, what is the halacha? Miamrinan hachometz taimo kasha. Do we say that vinegar has a harsh taste? Vein hasheretz mafigo loses botam, and therefore the sheretz does not impart a taste. Rashi seems to be understanding that that is the reason why it should be mutter, it should be permitted, because no taste is imparted. Tosas seem to learn slightly different. They ask the following question: if it falls into vinegar, V'im Tomar, Tosas ask, Ma'ishna mishari surin kimo b'shikra, what's the difference between a situation where it falls into vinegar or it falls into beer? And Tosas answer, V'yesh lomer, we can answer as follows: Mishum dechala chazak miod, because the vinegar is very strong. V'agav churfi, and because it's so sharp, no sein tam l'shevach. It's actually a situation where it improves the taste, and this is a reason, more of a reason why it should be aser. Kimo gabe chilsis, we find the same thing by chiltis. O dilma, or maybe me'at hasheretz neged hamashke. And the Bach changes that girsa slightly to Odilma ma'atu shevach hasheretz. It's just a little bit of improvement that the sheretz gives to the mashke, to the liquid. V'im kain, and if so, ein lanu less or kalkach. We shouldn't ask, or we shouldn't forbid. Ulakach hayashoel ma'yem imenu, and therefore this was a question. And the Gemara continues and answers. Amar le Rav Hillel le Rav Ashi. Rav Hillel said to Rav Ashi, Have uvda bei Rav Kahana. There was a case like this by Rav Kahana. V'yasser Rav Kahana, and Rav Kahana said that it was forbidden. Amar le said back to him, that's not a proof. Hahu imartute imartit. Rashi explains, imartute imartit means lachatichos dakos ketanos. Over there in that case, the mouse was cut into small thin pieces. V'sheretz isura b'chadasha ketumasa. When it comes to a sheretz, it's usur even the size of a kadasha, the size of a lentil, the same as its tumma. V'chayshinan dilma boleach chatichos sheretz b'hadechomet. So there was a different concern. The concern was that the person is actually swallowing pieces of the sheretz with the vinegar. That's why it was forbidden in that case. It does not mean that it is forbidden in general due to imparting taste. And the Gemara continues, Ravina savar l'sha'urei b'meya v'chad. Ravina thought to say that the flavor of the mouse is bottle in 101 times the amount. Amar, he said, lo garmi truma, it's no worse than truma. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah in Meseches, truma ola be'echru meya, the truma is bottle in 101 times the amount. Amar le Rav Tachlifa bar Giza Ravina. Rav Tachlifa bar Giza said to Ravina, Dilma ketavlin shel truma b'kedei radami. Maybe it's similar to spices of truma in a pot. The lo bottle tamayu, they impart a very strong flavor, and they're not even nullified in 101 times the amount. Rav Achoy shir b'chola b'chamshin. Rav Achoy said that the amount of bittul, let's say something falls into vinegar, is just 50 times the amount because vinegar is very strong. Rav Shmuel breid Ravika shir b'shichra b'shisin. Rav Shmuel, the son of Ravika, he said that when something falls into beer, it's bottle if it's 60 times the amount. V'hilchasa, and the halach is idi v'idi b'shisin, both are bottle in 60 times the amount. V'chein kol isurin shabbatorah, and that is true by all isurin in the Torah. And Rashi explains b'chamshin in 50 times the amount. Kevan de chometz taimo kasha, since vinegar the taste is very strong. Lo boy shisin levatula, you don't need 60 times the amount to nullify it. Afilo b'chamshin lo yoy beitaima, even in 50 times the amount, it is not going to impart any taste. Hachi garsinon v'chein kol isur shabetorah. The same is true by all isurin in the Torah. B'shishim, that it is 60 times the amount. And Rashi continues and notes, v'chein halacha revechas b'Yisrael demin b'she'eno mino b'shishim. This is also the widespread halacha in Klal Yisrael, that if it's not of the same kind, it's bottle in 60 times the amount. And we'll take a look at the girsa of the Mesoras Hashas. Avol min b'mino b'mashu, but if it's of the same kind, so then even the smallest amount creates an isur. Chutz mi chametz, with the exception of chametz, da'afilu b'she'eno mino, even if it's not of the same kind. Mukminon b'psachim, we say the halacha is in psachim, hilchasa b'mashu, that by chametz, again, even by min b'she'eno mino, a mashu creates an isur. Kirav, like Rav, v'taima mishum, and the reason is, t'chol isurin shabbatorah min b'mino b'mashu kirav. When it comes to all isurin in the Torah, by min b'mino it's b'mashu, like Rav says, u'v'chametz gezerah she'eno mino atu mino. But in chametz we say a gezerah, we make a decree even by she'eno mino that we treat it like b'mino, and therefore by chametz we're stricter and we say that it is always b'mashu. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ovid Kochavim Shayamavir Li Yisrael Kadeyayin Mimokum Lamakum. If an Ovid Kochavim, an idolater, is transporting barrels of wine for a Jew from place to place, Im Haya Bechezkas HaMishtamer, if it's under the presumption that there is supervision, mutter, then the wine is permitted. Im Hodio Shu Maflik, but if the Jew tells the Ovid Kochavim that he's traveling far away, Kadei Shayishtom V'yistom V'yigov, and it's enough time that the Ovid Kochavim can drill a hole into the barrel and close it up and let it dry, so then it is going to be forbidden. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Kadesha Yiftach es hachaves v'yigo fetigov. It has to be more time than that. It has to be enough time to open the barrel completely. That's removing the stopper, and then make a new stopper and let that dry. In that amount of time, then it will be forbidden. And the Mishnah continues, Haminiach yeno bekarono besfina. If somebody leaves his wine in a wagon or a ship, v'halach lo bekapendori, and he walks and he takes a shortcut. V'nichnas lemedina v'rachatz, and he enters into the province and he goes to bathe. Mutter, it is permitted, because the Ovid Kochavim in that case is concerned that the Jew is going to see if he deals with the wine. But im hodio shu maflik. But again, if the Jew tells the Ovid Kochavim that he's going to be traveling a distance, it's not going to be under supervision. Kedei sheyishtom v'yistom v'yigov. So then it's going to be forbidden if it's enough time for him to drill a hole and close it and let it dry. And again, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Kedei sheyiftach es hachaves. It has to be enough time that he would open the barrel, v'yigov fetigov, and then stop it up again and let it dry. And the Mishnah continues, Haminiach Ovid Kochavim bechanus. If somebody leaves an Ovid Kochavim in the store, Afal pi sheyotze v'nichnas mutter, even though he's going out and coming back in, it is permitted, because again, the Ovid Kochavim is not going to do anything to the wine out of concern that the Jew will see. Vim hodio shu ma'aflik. But again, if he tells him that he's going far away, Kedei sheyishtom v'yistom v'yigov. If it's enough time to drill a hole and close it up and let it dry, then it is forbidden. And again, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Kedei sheyiftach es hachaves v'yigov v'tigov. It has to be enough time to open up the barrel and then put in a new stopper and let it dry. And the Mishnah continues, if he's eating with him on the table, and he leaves jugs on the table, and he leaves a jug on the side table, and again, he leaves the Ovid Kochavim alone and he goes out. So masha al shulchan aser, whatever's on the table is forbidden, because the Ovid Kochavim assumes he has permission to touch that wine. But shal hadul v'ki mutter, but if it's on the side table, so that's permitted, because the Ovid Kochavim does not assume that he has permission. V'yamamar alone. Now, if the Jew says to the Ovid Kochavim, have a mozeg v'shosa, you can pour some water, dilute the wine, and drink it. Av shal hadul v'ki aser. So then he's giving him permission. So then even the wine on the side table will be prohibited. Chevios pesuchos asuros, if you have barrels that are open, they are forbidden. Stumos mutaros, if they're closed, they are permitted. Kedei sheyiftach v'yigov v'tigov. This line goes like Rabbi Shimon. If there's enough time that it can be opened and then you make a new stopper and let it dry, then it will be forbidden even by the barrels that are closed. And Rashi explains, if there's a presumption that it's under supervision, the Gemara will explain, even if the Yisrael, he travels a distance from the Ovid Kochavim a meal, but if he doesn't let him know that he's doing that he's traveling away, mutter, then it's permitted. Because the Ovid Kochavim is always concerned, maybe he's going to come right now. But if he tells him that he's traveling far, it's going to be a distance, when they were closed barrels. So the first opinion is shiuro b'chdei sheyishtom v'yistom v'yigov. The amount of time is the amount of time to drill a hole and close it and let it dry. Imshah kedei sheyikov ha'ovid kochavim nekev b'megufas hachavis. If he delays the amount of time that the Ovid Kochavim can drill a hole in the lid of the barrel, v'yachzor v'yistom hanekev, and then he can go ahead and close it, v'tivish, and let it dry, hastimo, let what he closed up dry, also then it's forbidden. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Eino neser ela ad sheyisha kedei sheyiftach es kol megufas hachavis. It's only going to be aser if he leaves the amount of time that he can open up the entire stopper of the lid of the barrel. V'yevshar lenot lo shelo tishaver kula. Rashi says you're not going to be able to take it. You're not going to be able to take that stopper without it breaking, so you're going to have to fashion a new one. V'yigo v'yasa megufa acheres chadosh. He's going to have to fashion a new stopper. V'tigo v'tivosh, and let it dry. And Rashi continues, Avol ishtim aschur, but for drilling a hole, lo chashu, that we're not concerned about, mishum de minkar, because that's obvious. And Rashi continues, if he leaves his wine in a wagon or in a boat with the Oved Kochavim, and the Yisrael goes, the Jew takes a shortcut, he enters the province and bathes, in a bathhouse, mutter, it's permitted. Since again, the Oved Kochavim doesn't know that he's taking his time, so he's afraid he's not going to touch anything. Masha al Hashulchan Aser, Rashi says, the reason why what's on the table is forbidden is the Meimar Omer Oved Kochavim Ze Yisrael Ze Zimnoni Lechol V'Lishtos V'Naga, because the Oved Kochavim says, the Jew invited me, and I'm allowed to eat and drink, and so he's going to touch. Shal Hadol V'Ki Mutter, but if it's on the side table, that's permitted. Dein Muchan L'Sudazu, that's not prepared for this meal. V'Imamar Lo have a Mozeg V'Shosef, he tells him that you can dilute the wine and drink it. Hoel V'Chizek Es Yada B'Rishos B'Miksa, since he strengthened him, he gave him a little permission. Some Chadaite, so now he's at ease. V'Naga B'Kula, he's going to touch all of it. Chavios Psuchos Shebebayis Asuros, let's say you have open barrels in the house, those are forbidden. Sdumos Mutaros, if they're closed, they're mutter. At Sheyisha Sheyiftach V'Yigov, unless again there's a delay of time that he can open it up, refashion a stopper and let it dry. Ustamak Rabbi Shimon Midelo Katani Sheyishtom. In this part of the Mishnah, which is unattributed, it follows Rabbi Shimon because it doesn't say that he's drilling a hole like the Tanakama. And the Gemara says, Hechi dami bechezkas hamishtamer. What does it mean in the Mishnah when it says that there's a presumption of supervision? And the Gemara says, Kedetanya, it says, we learn in the following brisa. Harei shayu chamorav upoalav tu'unin taharos. If his donkey drivers and his workers, they're laden with pure produce or pure wine, and these are talking about workers that are amei ha'aretz, they're generally not trusted with regards to tumah. Afilu hiflig mehen yoser mimil, even if he's a distance from them more than a meal, taharos of tahoros, that food is still considered to be pure. V'imamar lehen lechu v'ani bo acharechem. However, if he says to them, go, and I'm going to come after you, kevon shenesalma eino mehem, once his eye is hidden from them, taharos of tameos, then the food is considered to be tameh, it's considered to be impure. And the Gemara says, Maishna Resho, Maishna Seifa. What's the difference between the first case in the Brisa and the last case in the Brisa? And the Gemara says, and the Bach changes this to Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha says, Reisha, the first case of the Brisa, b'mitayar chamorov upoalav lakach. The case is that he purified his donkey drivers and his workers for this purpose. But the Gemara says, Yachi, if so, seifa nami. The end case also should be the same thing. It shouldn't be a problem. And the Gemara says to that, Ein amoretz makbid al mago chaveru. It's because an amoretz is not careful that his friend who's impure shouldn't touch the produce. But the Gemara says, Yachi, if so, afilu reisha nami. Then even in the first case of the Brisa, there should be a problem. Nei mohachi, we should say the same thing, that maybe he's going to allow his friend to touch it who is impure. And the Gemara says, Amar Rava, Rava says, and Rashi explains, Maishna Reishu, Maishna Seifa, Haka Chazuluhu, the Naga, doesn't he see? Don't we see that they're touching? The Katani Tu'unin and Taharus, it says they're laden with this pure produce. V'hani lav chevios ninu shiustumos. We're not talking here about barrels that are closed, and so therefore if they're touching it, isn't that a problem? And the Gemara answered, B'metayar chamor, if she'tvilanu maga antar, he had them immersed, and therefore these donkey drivers are pure. When they touch it, it's pure. And so the Gemara said, well, if that's the case, what's the issue at the end case of the Brisa? And the Gemara answered to that, al maga chavero, because these donkey drivers, they allow their friends, their colleagues, to touch the produce. Hapogea bo baderech, let's say he meets his friend on the road. V'lo niter lakach, that friend was not purified for this purpose. But the Gemara says, if that's the case, reishanami, then in the first case as well, kevon shehiflig iko lemecha shlahachi, when he goes some distance away, again, as it said in the Reisha, even if he's hiflig mehen yoser mimil, so then we should have a concern that maybe somebody else ended up touching the produce, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Tes Amud Beis.